You may be old enough to remember 19 years ago Ipperwash Beach, which is on Lake Huron. And there is now a new era of unrest. Back in 1995, Dudley George was shot there by police. Let's get to Christina Blizzard for the rest of this story, because this was a turning point for this country as far as First Nation relations are concerned. And now it's coming back, it seems, Christina.
Yeah, it is, Pat, and I covered the Ipperwash inquiry that happened in 2004, and it was an exhaustive inquiry into what happened when Dudley George was killed at Ipperwash after a few incidents such as this, when it was found, I think, that the OPP overreacted, some would say at the time, to the situation. But I think that, incidents like this obviously they do raise tensions in the area, and now once again we're seeing, the same thing happen.
Yeah, Christina, and we're seeing pictures right now of Ipperwash Beach where this has been considered a First Nations trail by the Kettle and Stony Point First Nations. And now it looks as though they're being more aggressive with machinery on that. It's not just a trail. It looks like they're doing something else. Do we have any idea what their plan is?
Well, I think that's what worries some of the cottages there, because, of course, there are a lot of people who do own private cottages in the area, and I've been to this area several times, so I know it fairly well. And, I think there has been in the past a fairly good relationship between the two communities, and certainly they have been working on it, over time. But certainly what has happened now was a stretch of beach that was closed to vehicles. Some of the First Nations people have been using it now as a drive-through to get to the Army camp. Now, the Ipperwash Army camp, actually, the Ipperwash inquiry, that was one of the issues that came out of that. It was owned by the First Nations. They gave it to the government for use during World War II as an army camp, on the understanding they gave it back, and they didn't. And that was what sort of became the contentious issue at that time. So now we're seeing, this land. Apparently, over the past few nights, there have been people driving around in vehicles on the beach at night, making a lot of noise, this kind of thing, which is actually reminiscent of, I hate to say it, but it's reminiscent of what happened at Caledonia. You'll remember there at the Six Nations Reserve there on the Douglas Creek Estates, when there was disputed land there, which the government ended up buying that land, but the neighbors were kept up all night by people driving around in, big vehicles with lights on, making a lot of noise. So this sounds to me as if that may be a slightly similar situation.
But I don't get the sense that this is disputed land anymore, or is it?
Well, no, I think it's what seems to be in dispute is the right of, to drive on the beach to get to the army camp, because the cottages there have been, used to using it. But, there's a very uneasy situation ever since Ipperwash, ever since that inquiry. The OPP have been really, really on being very careful, walking very delicately, because they don't want the same thing to happen. The government also has been very careful. We saw this in Caledonia, where they backed away. They have really, there's been very little effective policing at Caledonia. That was part of the problem there, and there is still a lot of unease. There's still a standoff. There's actually, on the land the government bought, there's actually a native smoke shack. So, there's been a little bit of provocation there. And I guess now this seems to be, tempers seem to be flaring a little bit at the beach back at Ipperwash.
Yeah, but it's a modus operandi, get everybody riled up as opposed to sitting down and negotiating. Is there a sense of who they should negotiate with? Is it Queen's Park? Is it the feds? Who?
Well, that's exactly the issue, Pat. As you recall, part of the issue at Caledonia and part of the issue at Ipperwash was there was so many people who spoke for the First Nations, and then on the other side, it is a federal issue, but it's also a provincial issue because Ipperwash is a provincial park, and you need to get everyone to the table, and this seems to be the issue we cannot handle in this province. We have no mechanism for dealing with, with issues with First Nations such as this, which, as you say, they should be able to get people to just sit down and discuss these, have some kind of a process by which disputes such as that are settled before it comes to neighbor yelling at neighbor and cars driving around in the middle of the night. We have to come up with a mechanism that resolves these issues peacefully, that everyone can negotiate, and everyone who is party to this is at the table.
Yeah. Christina, we'll see how it plays out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pat.
Christina Bush.